Okay, so we're going to get started today with some factoring. And what I would like you to do is go ahead and Google search for me factors of numbers. And there's one of them that's called calculator soup. Calculator soup. And go ahead and open up that factoring calculator because sometimes we just are going to need some help coming up with our factors. And this is sometimes the easiest way to pull them out. The link is actually included in your resources for today. So if you need to stop for a second, go back to Schoology and open up that link. Do that, have that open so you can kind of see where we're coming from with numbers. Okay, so we're going to start by factoring. And we're actually going to use what's called, and this is actually better called, I think, the Xbox method. Okay, the Xbox method. Because we're going to pull back to the area model to kind of help us factor. Okay, the area model to help us factor. So let's start with finding the factors of 60. We're going to start with kind of a little bit of a game where we need the factors of 60 and we're going to fill in this crisscross. And the way this crisscross works is the factors of 60 need to multiply to give me 60 and they need to add to give me negative 16. Okay, multiply to give me the top number, add to give me the bottom number. So let's go ahead and type in our factors of 60. And you'll see it gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 10, 12, 15, 20, and 30, and 60. So I'm going to go ahead and write these out. 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 goes with the 15, and 5 goes with 12, and 6 goes with 10. Okay, 6 goes with 10. So those are all my factors. Okay. How am I going to get a total of 16? Well, if I add 1 and 60, that doesn't work. 2 and 30, that doesn't work. 3 and 20, that's 23. That doesn't work. 4 plus 15, that's 19. That doesn't work. 5 plus 12, that's 17. That's closer. I see there's a 6 and this 10. I know if I add those, that's going to give me 16. Well, how can I possibly come up with the negative 16? Yeah, they would just have to be negative. So let's see if this works. Negative 6 plus negative 10 gives me a negative 16. Negative 6 times negative 10 gives me a positive 60. So my crisscross is complete. I have negative 6 and negative 10. Okay, let's do a few more of these. So I'll help you get started on one more, and then I want you to kind of keep working on this, and I'll catch up with you. So let's look at factors of 50. So I'm going to clear this, put in a 50. And I see I have 1 and 50, 2 and 25, 5 and 10. And the only way that I'm going to get a positive 15 is with positive 5, positive 10. And it's important to put those signs in there because as we move forward with our factoring, that's going to be really important for us. Okay, hit pause, see what you can do with these. All right, let's see how you did. And I'm going to kind of look down here at this middle portion. So factors of 48. So if I take a look over here, I have 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 3 and 16, 4 and 12, 6 and 8. Well, I need a total of 16. And I can use 4 and 12. So positive 4, positive 12. That would give me 16. So does that actually multiply to give me a positive 48? Yep, positive and positive is a positive. The 40, positive 10, positive 4. That one's pretty easy. 30, I need a negative 13. Okay, so this one might be a little trickier. This one might be one with positives, one with negatives. So let's take a look at our numbers. We have 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, and 5 and 6. I need to somehow come up with a 13. Well, I can get 13 here, but I can also get 13 here. So which one of those do I need? Well, this is positive. So if I was to try to get 13 here, I would have to take 15 and a negative 2. But those multiplied would be a negative 30. So that won't work. So this one, a negative 3 and a negative 10, that would give me a negative 13. And a negative times a negative is a positive. So that works. That works. Okay, let's come back up here and let's look at 20. So our factors of 20, we have 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. So somehow I have to get a negative 8. Well, I'm definitely not going to use the 1 and 20, and I definitely am not going to use the 4 and 5. So how can I get a negative 8 with 10 and 2? Well, if I take 10 minus 2, that gives me a positive 8. So I'm close. I actually need a negative 8. So the difference would be switching signs. So I need a negative 10 and a positive 2. Now, does that multiply to give me a negative 20? Yeah, it does. So I'm good. All right, got one more here. I need negative 165. I'm going to go ahead and put the negative in this, see what happens. So it's actually going to give me positives and negatives here. So I can kind of see my options. So I need something with a difference of 4. Something where I can get 4. So if I look over here, I see 11 and 15. I see 11 and 15. Well, I have two choices. I can use negative 11 and positive 15, or I can use positive 11 and negative 15. Which one of those is going to give me a positive 4? Yeah, this guy. So positive 15, negative 11. So this process, which is called our crisscross, this is the first step in factoring. Okay, this is the first step in factoring. This is where we come up with our starting factors. Okay, so let's pull all this together now. So when we're talking about standard form of a polynomial, a quadratic, it is ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is the coefficient in front of the x squared, the b is the coefficient in front of the c squared, the x, and the c is the last number. So in this case, 7x squared plus 29x plus 4, my a is 7, my b is 29, and my c is 4. Okay, so that's the first thing we have to do, to figure out what a is, b is, and c is, and make sure that I'm in standard form. So sometimes this has to be set equal to 0 to make it standard form. All right, so to fill in my crisscross, what I'm going to do is multiply my a and my c to get my top number. So my a is 7, my c is 4. So my top number, a times c, 7 times 4, is 28. My bottom number is my b, which is a positive 29. Okay, so I have a positive 28 and a positive 29. So the factors of 28, I have 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 4 and 7. Well, how can I come up with 29? It has to be the 1 and 28. So positive 1, positive 28 is going to give me my factors. Okay, so these are important because they are going to pull down into our boxes. Okay, so I know that since I have x squareds here, these are both going to have x's. Okay, they're both going to have x's. One of them is a positive 1, one of them is a 28, and that comes from my crisscross. Okay, that comes from my crisscross. Now, at this point, what I have to do is factor out GCFs from each direction, okay? So what can I take out of 7x squared and 28x? Well, I can take out a 7x, okay, because I can divide both of those by 7, and I can take out an x. So how about 1x plus 4? Well, the only thing I can take out is a positive 1, because 1 and 4, there's nothing else that are factors other than 1 and 4. Moving up here, 7 and 1, that's just going to be a 1x, not a 1x squared, just a 1x. Okay, I can just take out an x, and I can take out a factor of 1. 28x and 4, the GCF would be 4. Okay, GCF would be 4. So what I just did is I created my binomials. Okay, so my first binomial is 7x plus 1. The second binomial is 1x plus 4. Okay, 1x plus 4. So that is my factored form. Okay, I've pulled it all the way back to the binomials. Now let's check ourselves and make sure we're right. And the easiest way to check yourself is either area model or distribution. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and actually just let's use distribution. So that is a 7x squared. That is a 28x. That's a positive 1x. And that's a positive 4. So if I add these, 7x squared plus 29x plus 4, I see I come up with what I started with. Okay, what I started with. So that is our process. Standard form, come up with our A, B, and C, do our crisscross, okay, or make our X, come up with our factors, and then work backwards in our area model to come up with our two factors. Okay, let's look at this one. So I have 8y squared minus 6y minus 9. So A would be 8, B would be negative 6, and C would be negative 9. So I'm going to multiply A times C. That means my top number is a negative 72. My bottom number is a 6. All right, so let's get factors of negative 72. All right, so we have 1 and 72, 2 and 36, 3 and 24, 6 and 12, 8 and 9. Okay, so which of those sets is going to somehow get me a 6? Well, it looks like the 6 and 12 are probably going to be the important ones, the 6 and the 12 right here. Okay, so let's write down our 6 and our 12, and let's think about how we're going to get a negative 6. If the 12 is positive and the 6 is negative, is that going to give me a negative 6? No, okay, it's not. I need a negative 12 and a positive 6 to be able to get a negative 6. Notice how the larger number takes this bottom sign. And if I multiply, negative times a positive is a negative, okay? All right, so the way we start filling in our box is we start with our first term, so our 8y squared, and we're going to fill in, so we fill in our A term and our C term, and then we know we're going to have a variable, so let's throw our variable in, and our factors, the negative 12 and the positive 6, are going to fill in on my diagonal, okay? And then I am factoring out the GCF, okay? Factoring out the GCF. And again, 2, 3, 5, 7, okay? 2, 3, 5, 7 are your primary ones that you're dividing by. And keep in mind that the first spot should always have a variable. So we should be taking a variable out here and a variable out here, okay? So if I look at this one, I see a negative 12 and a negative 9. The first thing I see is they both have negatives, so I need to take a negative out. Well, I can't divide them by 2, but I can divide them by 3. So negative 12 divided by 3, negative 9 divided by 3, that works. Let's go this way, 8 and 6. I see the first thing I can do is take out a 2. Then I see I can take out a y. Okay, I can take out a y. Okay, moving up this way. 8 and 12. Well, if I take out a 2, that leaves me with a 4. So I think I better take out a 4. So sometimes you have to take out either 2 2s, or you might want to add 4 in there just to make sure you're not missing a larger factor. And again, I can take out a y. Now 6 and negative 9, that's going to be a 3. That's going to be a 3. And since these are one's positive, one's negative, the sign's going to stay positive. If they're both negative, I have to take the negative out. Okay? Have to take the negative out. So my factors, my factored form, 2y minus 3, 4y plus 3. Okay, now let's check it. That is 8y squared. That is 6y. That is a negative 12y and a negative 9. If I combine, I get 8y squared minus 6y minus 9. Is that what I should have? Yeah, that's what I started with, so I'm in good shape. Okay, here's a couple more. Go ahead and start your process and I will catch up with you. All right, let's see how you did. Top number is 50, the A times the C, and 27. Factors of 50. 1 and 50, 2 and 25, 5 and 10. How are you going to get 27? Yeah, 2 and 25. And they just happen to be both positive this time. So I don't even have to worry about any signs. So again, the A term pops in, the C term pops in, the variables are going to pop in, and then I drop in my factors. So positive 2 and a positive 25. So I see here on the bottom, I can take out a positive 2. Here on the top, I can take out a 5x. Going this direction, all I can take out is an x, or a 1x if I want to think about it that way. And here I can take out a 5. Okay, I can take out a 5. So my solutions, 5x plus 2, 1x plus 5. And again, you can check it again to make sure you're right. Sometimes the fastest way to check yourself is to check your middle terms. So do these multiplications. 5 times 5 is 25. 2 times 1 is 2. That's going to add together to give me the 27. If we're going to make a mistake, that's where it's going to be. So that's sometimes the quickest way to check it. All right, so this one, A is 1. So 1 times 10 is 10, and I have a 7. That one's pretty easy. That's 2 and 5. So I have a 1b squared, a plus 10. Here's my b's. And I'm going to throw in my positive 2 and my positive 5. So I see I can take a b out here, a positive 2, a 1b here, and a positive 5. So my solutions, in factored form, b plus 2, b plus 5. Let me write that as a 2. I wrote a 5 there. B plus 2 and b plus 5. Now, it doesn't make any difference which order they're in. I could have b plus 5 and b plus 2. It doesn't actually matter. Okay, so now when we have an equal sign, that means we're going to have to solve to get those roots that we talked about. So we actually have to find those 2 points on the x-axis after we're finished. Okay, so the process doesn't change. We still have to go all the way through factored form, but once we get there, we have to finish the problem. Okay, so this one is a little bit different because the first thing I see is that it's not equal to 0, so I have to move it so it's equal to 0. All right, and then before I even get started, I see that this is not ready to factor. And it's not ready to factor because I really need to factor out a GCF. Okay, I really need to factor out a GCF, which means there's an extra number in there that I need to divide by so that I can actually factor. Okay, if I leave it in there, I'm not going to get the right answer. So what number can I take out of 64, 32, and 12? 64, 32, and 12. Well, let's start by dividing by 2. Remember, 2, 3, sometimes 4, 5, and 7 are the key ones we want to focus on. So 64 divided by 2 gives me 32. 32 divided by 2, that's 16. And 12 divided by 2, that's 6. So that was dividing by 2. Can I take out another 2? Yeah, I can take out another 2. That would mean I was taking out a 4. Okay, because I'm adding another 2 here. So 32 divided by 2, taking out that other 2 would be 16, an 8, and a 3. Okay, so now I think I'm done. So this 2 times 2, that's my GCF. I'm going to pull that all the way down here. Okay, so I can't lose that GCF. So now I have my A and my C. So 16 times negative 3, that's a negative 48. And my negative 8 is going to go here. So I need factors of 48 that are somehow going to give me a negative 8. So let's put in negative 48. And let's take a look at it. So where do you see some way that I can get a negative 8? Well, 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 3 and 16, 4 and 12. Well, 4 and 12 looks promising because they have a difference of 8. So do I need a positive 12 and a negative 4? Does that give me a negative 8? No, that does not. So I need a negative 12 and a positive 4. So the larger number has to take this middle sign. So if I add those, that's going to give me a negative 8. Negative times positive gives me the negative 48. So I am good there. So now when I go up to my box, I'm going to use the 16 r squared and the negative 3. I'm not going to use the 64 because I've factored out that 4. Okay? So the negative 12r, the positive 4r. Here, I can take out a negative 3. Remember, if they both are negative, take it out. Here, I can take out a 4r. 16 and 12. I can take out a 4 and an r. And 4 and negative 3, that's going to be a 1. Okay, that's going to be a 1. So my factors, I have 4r minus 3 and 4r plus 1. And I also have my 4 here. Okay, that's the GCF that's out here on the side. And it's equal to 0. Now, if you remember, what happened when they were equal to 0 is these had to split into 2 equations. So I'm going to drop down here and write my 4r minus 3, my 4r plus 1, and I have to solve them. This guy, I get to just ignore, okay, because it's not going to solve into anything, because we can't have 3 roots on a quadratic. We can only have 0, 1, or 2. So 4r minus 3 equals 0, 4r equals 3, r is going to equal 3/4. 4r equals negative 1, r equals negative 1/4. So if I was to graph this, negative 1/4 is in here, and 3/4 is here, and I have a very skinny quadratic, okay, a very skinny parabola. All right, so go ahead and see what you can do with these today. We're going to work some more on this tomorrow. Make sure you've taken some pretty good notes. Reach out to us if you're struggling, and you make use of that factor generator.